what I've done is I've looked at all the different flowers and tried to find what are the most common 10 things that we do for everything. And that's the way we start in the first course, is all about the how to load your brush, right? And those basic strokes, right? So the first thing we have to do too is just play around with gradients. You know, how much light, how much dark do we have to put on our brush? Because definitely there's times where we want more dark and just a very little bit of light on the top, right? Sometimes we want more. When do we want that, right? What's the effects of it, and why do we want to be able to have more dark? Right? So when you're doing just one layer of flowers, definitely it's nice to have a lot of both colors. But if you're layering flowers, when you're doing roses and stuff like that, you want to add that extra stripe in there, right? You're layering things. Then you want to make sure that your dark is going to be up high enough so that you can continue to keep putting all those layers of flowers on top of each other, right? And then depending on your wiggles, how fast you move, how slow you move, right? There's so many different scenarios of waves, what I call dances, right? Because they remind me of dances in a way. Sometimes we're doing really cha-cha fast, and then sometimes we're doing like a waltz really slow with a little bit of a backflip in there. Right? So it's all about playing around, right? With feeling comfortable with how you're moving that brush, right? So this is basically all the first course, you know, just a little quick lowdown of it, of understanding all the different wiggles, all the different gradients, right? Doing some U strokes in both directions where you're humping it over and under, right? Because this is the number one flower that we all want to learn, right, is that rosebud, and it's just all about 2 U strokes, one upside down, I call it happy, and one inverted, right? And then we've got our simple rosebud just by those 2 strokes, right? So that's what I love about one stroke, is that you can do it very, very simple. You can put some wiggles in there, you know, and really create those different rosebuds with a little bit more flair and very randomness of wiggles, right? So yeah, there's lots of plays. Definitely our shell strokes, right? They can be very standard, but they can also have, you know, different small bumps, little bumps, big bumps, you know, lots of different varieties of wiggles to play around with to make them look more unique. Right? No 2 roses should ever compete with each other, right? Every time you do a rose, or I do anyways, like they should look different. You shouldn't have to be like a photocopier and have that exact same rose every time, because they're never going to be the same depending on the angle they're sitting in the garden. If you're looking at them face view, if you're looking at them on the angle, side views, right? There's so many different scenarios that we have now with that standard one rose that we want to learn, right? So this is where I really play with a lot of the roses. I've got a couple different projects. I've got a variety of roses that you guys can see how there's so many different variations of them. Cabbage style to peony style, very simple. Right, but you know, definitely with all these little endings here, right? You got these little comma strokes, right? The way these shell strokes. Well, sometimes we just use this one part of the stroke by itself, right? And then people are always, well, I'm left-handed, I'm right-handed. What I call it is right-handed and left-handed strokes. It doesn't matter if you're right-handed or left-handed. Right, doesn't matter who you are, you're gonna still have to practice floating your brush in 2 directions. There's always gonna be one that's harder than the other, right? So the one that is harder, you definitely have to maybe practice a little bit more of. Okay, so the different variations of comma strokes, your very basic one, right? So I always try to remind you guys when you're doing these shell strokes and these teardrop strokes, right? So what's half of a teardrop? A comma stroke, right? So sometimes we need to go and play with these teardrops a little bit to remind us to make a half of a teardrop, or half of it the other way, right? And then practicing that teardrop upside down. Right, so this is the way I take you through all these courses, right? Is we start off simple, and then I start pushing you to do the same stroke, but in different directions or with a little bit slightly different dance, right? So you're slowly going to bump yourself up to all of these different flowers and petals, and then being able to, cut in that little closing stroke, right? What is that? Just basically our little sideways comma stroke. But maybe it was easier for you to do it this way, but definitely these roses are sideways. Right? So it's the same stroke, but in different directions. Right? So the more comfortable you can be to practice all this without flipping your page, the more versatile it'll help you be as well. Right? So slowly, like I said, each course will bump you into learning how to do it right, and then try to change it in different little ways of upgrading it a little bit more at a time. Right, so yeah, it's just keep playing, don't stop. I find it's like any learned technique, whether you're a baker, whether you play piano, whether it's all definitely the time that you put into it, and a guided process, having a mentor to be able to pick your brain and ask questions, right? A lot of us are trying to self-teach ourselves, and definitely I only wish that I could have flew down to Florida 10 years ago and made Donna myself, because there was nobody online back then to help me. So definitely that's the struggles that inspire me to come and help you guys and dissect these strokes down to the simplest ways, and then slowly bump you into harder and harder. So definitely it's all about playing. Because this is just the beginning of your journey here, guys, in very quick layman's terms. You can email me or private message me on Facebook. It is easier to send me pictures on my Facebook if you like to have critiques on any of your practice. Right, to get comfortable with the brushes and the techniques, and then the more you play with all these other little simpler ones, by the time you jump on that rose, then you'll be comfortable with all your common strokes. I call them dolphin noses when I put a little point to them. And yeah, it's like Netflix. You're gonna binge watch me and watch the video and then practice with the video. Send me all your homework every time you're going through any of the assignments. I'd love to see them all. I can give you feedback. And then as you keep working through each course, right, send your homework to me. And then anytime that you feel like you're struggling or you need a little bit more one-on-one, you just let me know, and then we will meet on Zoom and we will cover whatever your questions are. Definitely, I'm here for you guys. It's mentoring, not just a lesson, and you guys are stuck with figuring it out on your own after